There are really many games set in the age of piracy. This is an extremely popular topic, so we have a lot of people who like pirate games. The same applies to steampunk games. This is an extremely popular setting, and we have tons of games which are set in this universe. So what would happen if we mixed those both two worlds? Firstly, the pirates, and secondly, the steampunk setting. Is it a feasible thing? Well, yes it is. See for yourself. Hello, this is Michel Leviathan Sorbet, and this is a new episode of Wojennik TV. Pirates and steampunk, two completely opposite worlds, two completely different settings. And still we have a game which managed to mix both of them. This game is a title published in 2015 by Game Salute, and the game is called Skyway Robbery. This is a game published thanks to a successful Kickstarter campaign launched in 2014. The objective of the campaign was to gather $32,000, and at the end the campaign closed with $32,121. So it was just at the limit. The game was successfully funded, but it didn't gather such a big amount of money than initially it was expected. Even though the game was released, and it was released really in a high standard. I will show you it in a few moments. 552 backers backed the game, and it is thanks to their commitment that the game was released. The author of this title is Philippe Dubarry. The game is for 2 to 5 players aged 12 or higher, and the time of play will be somewhere around 90 and 120 minutes. This is a game in which we will incarnate thieves, in which we will incarnate aerial pirates trying to gather additional thieves which will be part of our gang, which will become our gang members, and with this gang we will try to gather the most possible number of the biggest wealth possible. We will be trying to firstly steal objects from the places that the airship on which we will be traveling will be visiting. So we will be picking locks, we will be trying to overpass defense systems while stealing those precious objects. We will be trying also to suppress local thugs. We will be trying to steal objects which are inside the airship. So a lot of things which are possible to be done, but at the end it's the thief, it's the pirate who will have the most number of wealth, who will be declared the winner. Today I'd like to show you how this game looks, then I'd like to briefly explain what are its basic mechanics, and at the end of the video, as usually, I'll give you my final thoughts and my final recommendation. So let's begin and let's check how Skyway Robbery looks. Here is a brief look on all the gorgeous components of Skyway Robbery. Now, the first and most important element that we receive in this game is the game board. It is a big, sturdy and mounted board on which everything will be stored, because we will be storing a lot of different card types on this board. As you can see, those cards will be placed on very specific places because the playing area will be divided into different parts. The upper part of the board will firstly be composed of the turn track, which will be composed of 5 different tiles, each time randomly chosen from a set of 10 tiles. Those will be the small tiles which are corresponding to all the locations which can be found in Skyway Robbery, and those locations will form the turn track on which our airship will be moving. We receive one miniature, as you can see, not a miniature, we receive one token, the airship token, which will be moved alongside this track. The second part, which is located in the upper part of the board, is the airship, so the places, the different parts of the airship on which we'll be placing some different cards. The airship crewmen, which are possible to be recruited during the game. We have some places where potential gang members can be recruited, some places where equipment can be acquired, and also we have the brig, so the airship's prison, and also we have a place where some bounty can be stolen, because we have also some small treasures which are inside the airship, so we will be able to steal them during the game. The part which is located beneath is the dock, so where our airship will dock when visiting locations, and the part located at the bottom of the board will be the location itself. And here we will find firstly cards which again can be acquired. Those will be the location specific cards, and also some generic, some universal cards, both character cards and equipment cards. We will find also some dedicated cards which will enable us to execute one of the illegal actions, which will be the turf war action, during which we will be trying to fight some local thugs in order to acquire reputation, because in the game we will be trying to acquire the biggest number of reputation points. The locations are represented by big tiles. As you can see, we have an assortment of 10 such big location tiles, and each of those tiles represents one of the locations that can be visited by the airship. As you can see, each such big tile has firstly its number indicating when such a tile can be visited. Secondly, we have also a small description of what this tile represents, what this location is, and also a certain number of defense systems. Because in this game, in Skyway Robbery, we will incarnate thieves, we will incarnate thugs, or maybe some thieves who will be trying to steal treasures and objects both found on the airship and found in the locations that the airship will be visiting. And each time that the airship enters a new location, a new big tile is placed. Now, as you can see, those tiles are placed in such a way that they are connected to some spaces which have some places where additional small cards can be placed. Here, for instance, on the 6th location under Sea Museum, we have 2 empty spaces where new cards will be instantly drawn from the defense deck, because those small cards are the defense cards. And the defense cards will be used in order to try to stop us from stealing some treasures, from stealing the objects which can grant us reputation points. And each such a defense card can have one or more defense systems which will try to block our heist. And during this heist, we will be trying to play character cards and equipment cards in order to pass those defense systems. So those cards will be randomly chosen will be randomly drawn from the deck and placed onto the empty spaces for defense systems. We have both simple cards, which as you can see indicate that we have one defense system, but we have also more complicated ones, for instance, which require us to bypass two defense systems. We have also some over-advanced ones, which for instance require us to use strength points in order to pass those defense slots. Now, during the game, or rather before the game starts, every player will randomly choose one of 5 different characters. We receive 5 characters which have their own unique capacity and their own dedicated board. Those boards are double-sided, and those two sides are different because each side has a different special capacity. Each board has also a play overview, and it has also a small description telling us who this person is, who this character is. Finally, on those boards we will have 3 places where action cards will be placed. In Skyway Robbery we will be planning our turns ahead, and after each player finishes planning, we will uncover those actions one at a time and do our action and activate those actions. Now we have several types of actions. We have, for instance, the pickpocket action, which allows us to take 2,000 from the bank. Secondly, we have a capacity called use skill, which will enable us to play a gang member with an arrow and use the indicated ability, because some of the gang members which will be part of our gang will have this arrow indicating that we can use the action use skill in order to activate this capacity. We will have an action called repeat, which enables us to replay one of the actions that we have already played during this turn. We have a very crucial important card which is called acquire asset, which enables us to claim a new gang member, airship crew member or piece of equipment from aboard the airship or on the dock. Because we have several types of cards, we can, as mentioned a few moments ago, acquire both crewmen which are part of the airship's crew. As you can see, we can acquire new gang members which are both on the airship and also in the docks, and finally we can also acquire equipment. Each such a card has a certain amount of capacities which correspond to some defense systems. So having such a gang member will enable us to pass such a defense system when trying to make an illegal action. For instance, the engineer, as you can see, has 4 different capacities, and one of them is steam, which will enable us to bypass the defense system indicated by this card. Some other crew members or some other gang members have other capacities than only enabling us to bypass defense systems. They enable us, for instance, to remove alarm dice which hinder illegal actions. We can have equipment which enables us, for instance, to increase our strength total, etc. In general, acquiring those gang members, acquiring equipment will enable us to have a certain amount of assets which can be used when trying to accomplish illegal actions. Each such a card will require us to pay a certain amount of money to the bank. We have, when continuing the list of actions possible to be taken, and 2 red cards, as you can see, which can enable us to do one of 2 illegal actions. They are illegal, so they are indicated in red. Firstly, we have the turf war, which is an action made near the docks where we try to fight one of the local thugs. Using strength points, we have to play cards which have an equal or bigger number of strength points than the thug that we are fighting. If we manage to successfully fight him, we will receive the indicated number of reputation points at the game's end. The second action on the same card is the side job, which in contrast enables us to try to attack one of two treasures located directly on the airship. Each such a treasure has a certain amount of defense systems directly printed on the card. So in order to steal such an object, we have to bypass those systems. If we manage to, we can score a certain number of reputation points at the game's end, and also we can receive a certain amount of money. The second red card also has two illegal actions on it. Firstly, it's the jailbreak, which enables us to break into the brig, which is the airship's prison, and we can take the gang members which are closed in this prison, and we can add them to our gang. So this is also a way to obtain additional gang members. The last illegal action is the local heist, which enables us to attack the location, so the place where the airship is currently docked and where we can score the biggest number of reputation points, because when attacking such a location we can acquire the treasure corresponding to this location. So for instance, in the 6th location the treasure will be the giant pearl, which will grant us 14 reputation points at the game's end, and we will also receive 5,000 ingots, which is the currency in this game instantly. Now, as you can see, the number of reputation points increases with the increase of the location. So the highest possible number of reputation points scored at a location is 24 in the 10th location. But in order to steal such an object, we have to bypass the defense system guarding it. So firstly, we will have to bypass all the defense systems which are directly printed on the location tile. Secondly, we will have to bypass all the location defenses which were placed from the defense deck. And at the end, we will have also to have a card with the vault or the code symbol in order to unlock the treasure and steal it. So when trying to bypass those defenses, we will be using cards which are in our hand, and we can play those cards. We can give a piece of equipment to each gang member, and we compare the symbols indicated on our played gang members alongside with their equipment with the defense systems. If we manage to bypass every defense system and additionally open the vault or have the code, we can steal the equipment. But it is not that easy, because firstly we have to possess the corresponding symbols. Secondly, for each gang member from the third, we have to use additionally one alarm die. This die will increase the difficulty, because for each such a die, if we roll this symbol, we will lose one of our gang members who is arrested during the heist, and he will go to the brig. If all our gang members which were sent to the heist are arrested, the heist is unsuccessful and we cannot steal the object. Some objects which are used are also loud, which again add also some additional dice, and we have to roll them before resolving the final result of the illegal action. The last action which can be chosen by a player is the anonymous tip, which is a black action, but it will influence the illegal, so the red actions of other players, because this action will add one red die to each upcoming illegal action revealed by an opponent after this card. So this will increase additionally the difficulty of illegal actions made by other players. Additionally, the anonymous tip gives you also 2 reputation points instantly. At the end of the game, it's the number of reputation points which decides of the outcome of the game. It's the player who has the biggest number of those reputation points, both coming from turf war cards, side job cards, from stolen loot, which comes from location tiles, and from tokens which can be acquired during the game, for instance by playing anonymous tips cards, or maybe from some bonuses which come from some character cards which can be recruited to our
to our gang. So those are basically all the major rules which govern the play of Skyway Robbery. There are of course some other rules, but I wouldn't like now to explain them in full detail, because this is not a tutorial of Skyway Robbery. This is a review during which I wanted to show you briefly how the game looks, how it plays. But now at the end, I'd like to share with you my final thoughts, and I'd like to give you my final recommendation concerning this title. So let's now pass to this conclusion. I'll start with the strong points concerning Skyway Robbery.
At the beginning of this video, I have already said that Skyway Robbery is a mix of the piracy theme and of the steampunk universe. And it might seem that this combination would be strange, would not be a successful mix. But in fact, Skyway Robbery is a game which in my opinion is a very high quality design, an interesting game with a great theme, with a great climate, and with a great replay value. But firstly, this game is absolutely gorgeous. And when looking for strong points of Skyway Robbery, the first one, pretty obvious, which I'd like to underline, is the fact that this game is so pretty. The components which are really very numerous in this box that we receive, it's a heavy box, are quite pretty. We receive a lot of them. We receive both location boards, a huge big map game board on which we'll be placing tons of different card types. We receive tokens, we receive additional stuff, and all those components are of high quality. The game very sturdy, the board very sturdy, very pretty, with a lot of things which are going on it, but very intuitive and with place to store absolutely everything. The strong point of this game is the artwork, because we have a lot of cards in this game, but every and each of those cards is extremely pretty. So the artwork in this game is really is really magnificent. We have a lot of very pretty pictures, and when playing this game, even looking at it, we are impressed by the quality. This applies also to the correlation between the theme and the mechanic, because all those pretty elements are very evocative. We think instantly of the theme. It's very easy to feel the climate of the game. So the game is not only about being an aerial thief, about gathering gang members and making heist attempts. It's not only described, it's a thing that we will be feeling, and we will be experiencing the emotions which are related. So this game is extremely tense, it's extremely dynamic, it's also full of interesting twists, because in the game we will have always this unpredictable aspect in terms of planning our moves ahead without knowing what our opponents will do. We will not be able to change our cards that we have chosen for the current turn unless we have some special assets which allow us to do so. So when planning our turn, we will not exactly know if we will be able to achieve every goal that we want to. We will have to sometimes to make decisions in accordance to what changed from the time when we chose the three actions, because when we choose those actions and when we play them, the situation on the board can be very different. For instance, some cards might have been already bought by our opponents. Some cards that we wanted to steal have disappeared, and other defense systems appeared on the board. So the game is really, really dynamic, and sometimes it's impossible to calculate everything. So the visual aspect, the climate, and also the great correlation between the theme and the mechanics chosen are all very strong points of this game. I highly rate also the replay value of this title, because we have really a lot of different things which make this game different each time. We have not less than 10 different location tiles. We will be randomly choosing only 5 of them for each game. So each time we'll be playing, we can have a different set of locations that the Earthship will be traveling through. But again, even if we have the same location tiles, which is possible and which might happen, we will have different defense cards, which will differentiate the level of difficulty, the number of cards or the type of cards, the number and type of defense systems that we will have to surpass when trying to steal some objects, both from the location as also from the Earthship when trying to do side jobs. So even so, the different heists and the heists and side jobs will be always different. Again, we have also the character cards, which will be also randomly chosen at the game's start, which will be put onto the playing board when traveling through different locations. We have also different equipment cards, we have different crew member cards, we have different side job cards, so a lot of different things which make each two games very different. Finally, what I like in this title is the fact that you can acquire victory points through in different ways. You can concentrate on local heists, which of course at the game's start, when we have the first locations, will not grant you a lot of points. But if you successfully, if you manage to succeed in your final heist, for instance in the 10th location, you will score not less than 24 points. That's really huge. But you can also gain points from other sources. You can concentrate on tough wars. You can decide to fight those thugs in order to gain quite a lot of victory points in this way. You can concentrate on side jobs. You can play a lot of anonymous tips in order to acquire some additional points, and also in order to increase the difficulty level of illegal actions done by your opponents. Finally, you can invest and try to gather the biggest possible number of money, because money also gives you points at the game's end. If you have some special crew, if you have some special gang members which grant you additional points at the game's end, it's also a factor which you should take into consideration, because having, for instance, a gang member which gives you additional points for every single money unit at the game's end will instantly make you think that maybe acquiring more money is the way to go. So I like this approach, because you have different ways to gain money, and even if someone is quicker at doing the local heist, even if someone grabs a very powerful character, you can still find other ways to gain points. So what, in my opinion, are the weaker points of Skyway Robbery? The first thing which I'd like to say is that although I like the great diversity of character and of equipment cards that we receive in this game, I believe they are not balanced. We have some ridiculously powerful cards which, if grabbed by a player, give them a huge advantage. For instance, the gunpowder barrel. Well, it's insane. It's so cheap and it's so powerful at the same time. Having five strength points just for a single card enables you to, when combined with some 1 or 2 cards, enables you to acquire almost every thug in tough war missions. There are other such cards, such as the engineer or the physician. They are extremely powerful, and if any of the players manages to acquire them, they have a huge advantage. And at the same time, it is not due to their play, it's just random, because you first have your initial draft, and if you happen to have one of those very powerful cards as the alarm specialist, for instance, you will instantly grab it, and you will have a better starting position than your fellow gamers. So in my opinion, the cards, although not very well balanced, will sometimes give a small edge to one of the players. Not an enormous issue. It's not that the cards are very unbalanced, but still knowing the cards, knowing what to expect gives you also an edge. I have played this game 35-40 times. I enjoyed it a lot, but when playing it and when seeing what my opponents grabbed at the initial draft or during their first turn, I can instantly predict that they will have a lead in terms of victory points from the beginning, and it will be quite hard to recover. The second thing, which might be an issue when playing this game, is the fact that this game, in my opinion, when played by 4 or 5 players, tends to be quite random. I said that it is impossible to plan your entire turn ahead when preparing your actions. It's quite possible to achieve it when playing 3-player games, a lot more feasible when playing 2-player games, a lot more predictable. When playing 4 or 5-player games, it will be a different game, because you will be trying to choose the actions which will minimize the risk of having empty actions. So you will try to choose such actions and in such an order in order to avoid not to being able to do anything. So when playing 4 or 5-player games, the situation will be so dynamic, it will be changing so quickly on the board, that sometimes you will have the feeling that it's only a question of using what assets I have and not what I'd like to have in order to achieve my objectives. When playing 2 and 3-player games, a lot more gamble can be present in the game, because you can plan your turn taking into consideration cards which are present on the board. You can plan and predict that maybe you will be able to grab them because no one will take them, and then use them in your next action. But when playing 4 or 5-player games, I wouldn't gamble on it. I prefer to plan my turn in accordance to what I have already in my hand, which is a lot more predictable than when based on what opponents will do. Even so, I still can have empty turns, because I can plan, for instance, a local heist on my second move, and one of the players can do it on his first move. So still it will be very dynamic. Concluding, I believe that Skyway Robbery is a very good game, a very interesting game with an interesting theme. I'm not a fan of steampunk games, but this one is one of the only ones that I really like set in this universe. I like the artwork, I like the setting, I like the climate, I like the dynamics of the game, I like the fact that it has a huge replay value, and at the same time it's so pretty. It's just so pretty. I like this game only to use those characters, to assault those gang members, to use them during my actions. It's a thing which is very subjective, but I like the artwork enough in order to play the game, even if in terms of mechanics I still have some doubts, for instance concerning the balance of some cards. If you have the option of grabbing this game, I think you should try it, because it's a great family game. It's a game which enables you to really have fun with other players who like such games, quite light games, quite accessible and quite dynamic, interesting and very pretty. This was the review of Skyway Robbery by Game Salute, published in 2015. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take also a look at our other reviews in English. Take also a look at our Instagram and Facebook accounts. And if you want to support Wojennik TV, take a look at our Patronite account. You can become one of our patrons. Have a terrific day and see you next time.